Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Jinger Duggar reveals everything's not perfect with mom and dad. Counting on alum Jinger Duggar Vuolo has been participating in interviews and conferences over the past few months. Most of the time, the 30-year-old mom talks about her disentanglement from the IBLP. However, it seems that Jeremy's wife has a new goal as she begins to talk more about her parents. Keep reading to see her latest podcast, in which she shares the imperfect dynamics of her parents. Counting on Jinger Duggar's Women's Conference. In April, Jinger shared photos and clips from a women's conference where she talked in front of hundreds. The Counting on alum talked about some parts of her book, Becoming Free Indeed. According to Jinger, she was grateful to share her story with those who share her struggles. The highlight for me was meeting so many precious people and getting to hear their stories of how they came out of legalism into freedom in Christ. She added, Jinger reveals everything's not perfect with mom and dad. Jinger recently participated in the Unplanned podcast with Matt and Abby. The Counting on alum opened up about the family dynamics she grew up with and her current status with Jim Bob and Michelle. According to the sixth Duggar child, she's grateful for her childhood, even though it wasn't perfect, adding that there are a lot of struggles growing up with such strict core values. I love them. We have differences. Everything's not perfect between us. But I think that at the end of the day, I love them and I know that they know that. Jinger Duggar Vuolo continued before saying that it's difficult to talk about her disentanglement from the IBLP to her parents. They don't have to be happy about it, but it's what I need to do, she added. This fueled her desire to write a book about why she believes something is wrong with Bill Gothard's teachings. Jinger also said that she focused on talking about the IBLP instead of her difficult childhood to avoid offending her family. Counting on Jinger Duggar writing a book and relocating. It also appears that Jinger has a lot of ongoing projects. Some Redditors recently discovered that the Counting on alum is writing a book that will be released in 2025. It's titled People Pleaser, Breaking Free from the Burden of Imaginary Expectations. According to its description, Jinger will talk about her personal journey of constantly seeking approval and how she found her true identity. Aside from that, some fans also discovered that Jeremy and Jinger Duggar Vuolo listed their Los Angeles home for sale. It's unclear if they're relocating again, but several people think they're going to downsize due to the expensive life in Los Angeles. In the world of reality TV, few families have captured the public's attention quite like the Duggars. With their large family, strict religious upbringing, and the show 19 Kids and Counting, they became a symbol of wholesome family values, at least on the surface. But as the years have gone by, cracks in that polished image have begun to show, especially from some of the Duggar children themselves. Jinger Duggar Vuolo, in particular, has been the most vocal about her evolving relationship with her parents, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, and the ways in which everything behind the scenes may not be as picture-perfect as once portrayed. In a recent interview and in her book Becoming Free Indeed, Jinger has opened up about the difficulties she's faced while growing up under her parents' strict religious guidelines, specifically their adherence to the controversial teachings of Bill Gothard and the Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP. These teachings not only shaped her childhood, but also the way she viewed herself, her family, and the world. The picture-perfect illusion. From an outsider's perspective, the Duggar family seemed to be the epitome of a happy, close-knit unit. The children were homeschooled, modestly dressed, and always quick to smile on camera. Jim Bob and Michelle, at the helm, were frequently praised for their commitment to their faith and family. Yet, according to Jinger, the reality was far more complicated. For much of her life, Jinger said she believed her parents had the best intentions and that the strict lifestyle they adhered to was the only path to righteousness. The Duggar children were taught that obedience and submission were paramount, especially for women. The lines between personal desire and duty to family were blurred, leaving little room for individual thought. I grew up believing that our family was different from the world, that we were special because we followed God's principles more closely than anyone else, Jinger revealed. But as I grew older, I started to see the cracks in that belief system. Things weren't as black and white as I had been led to believe. The burden of perfection. Jinger explained how her parents, particularly Jim Bob, maintained an atmosphere of control in the household. They expected their children to be model Christians, not only for the sake of the family, but also for the viewers who watched them each week. With the family constantly under public scrutiny, the pressure to appear flawless became overwhelming. There was this unspoken rule that we had to be perfect all the time. We could make mistakes because the world was watching. It was exhausting trying to keep up with that image, and it made me feel like I could never be good enough, Jinger admitted. In her younger years, Jinger accepted these expectations without question, seeing them as part of her devotion to God. But as she entered her teenage years and began questioning her parents' beliefs, she started to feel the weight of that imposed perfection more acutely. According to Jinger, her parents' control extended beyond behavior. It influenced their children's personal relationships, career paths, and even their thoughts. Breaking away from the IBL, one of the key moments in Jinger's awakening came when she began to question the teachings of Bill Guthrie. The IBLP promoted a rigid view of gender roles, emphasizing that women should always be submissive to male authority, whether it be their father, husband, or other male figures. Jinger recalls how these teachings limited her ability to develop her own sense of identity. For years, Jinger was taught that stepping outside of these prescribed roles was a sin, but as she matured, she started seeing the flaws in this ideology. Guthrie's teachings were not only oppressive, but in many cases, they were manipulative and harmful. When Jinger learned about the allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse against Guthrie, it shattered the foundation of what she had believed her whole life. I couldn't reconcile the man who was supposed to be a spiritual leader with the things I was hearing about him, Jinger said. It made me question everything I had been taught. Jinger's realization didn't happen overnight. It was a slow and painful process of deconstructing her beliefs and understanding that the teachings she had been raised on were flawed. The more she questioned, the more she saw the toxic patterns in her upbringing, particularly in the way her parents enforced these teachings without question. Strained relationships. As Jinger began to distance herself from the IBLP and the rigid doctrines her parents had adhered to for so long, it caused tension within the family. While she has been careful not to condemn her parents directly, it's clear that her evolving beliefs have put a strain on their relationship. There's definitely tension, Jinger admitted. I love my parents and I know they love me, but we don't always see eye to eye. They're still very much committed to the teachings of Guthrie, and I've chosen to walk away from that. It's hard because I don't want to hurt them, but at the same time, I can't live my life in a way that I no longer believe is right. Jim Bob and Michelle, who continue to adhere to the IBLP teachings, reportedly struggle with Jinger's decision to step away from the family's core beliefs. Despite this, Jinger remains hopeful that they will eventually come to understand her perspective. For now, though, the relationship is delicate, with Jinger focusing on setting boundaries that allow her to live her life authentically. Finding freedom. For Jinger, her journey away from the strict religious teachings of her upbringing has been both liberating and terrifying. In her book, Becoming Free Indeed, she details how she has come to embrace a new understanding of faith, one that isn't rooted in fear, control, or manipulation. It's been freeing to realize that my relationship with God doesn't have to be about following a strict set of rules. I can have a personal relationship with Him that isn't based on fear of punishment or the need to be perfect all the time, Jinger said.